Hello, my lovely family. Tonight, I have 5 scary and unique stories just for you. These tales will make you shiver and help you fall asleep. Before we start, I have a small request. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me make more spooky stories. If you have any story ideas, leave a comment below. Now, let's begin. I had always considered myself a rational person, grounded in the present with little patience for the supernatural or fantastical. So, when I received that call, I was certain it was some sort of elaborate prank or a bizarre mistake. It was a rainy Thursday evening when the phone rang. I was alone in my small, dimly lit apartment, sprawled on the couch with a book. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number, one I didn't recognize. Frowning, I picked up the receiver, wrong number. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hesitant. The voice on the other end was a low, tense whisper. "Emily, it's me. It's you." I froze. The voice was identical to mine, yet strained, urgent. "Who is this?" The voice sighed, a weary sound that seemed to come from deep within. "I don't have much time. You need to listen to me. I'm you from the future. There's a killer coming for you." A cold shiver ran down my spine. This isn't funny. Who is this really? "Emily, I'm serious. I'm you from 2 weeks ahead. I'm calling because I need to warn you. There's a killer who's going to come after you tonight. You have to do exactly as I say if you want to stay alive." I almost hung up, dismissing the call as an elaborate hoax. But something in the voice, an edge of desperation, made me hesitate. Why should I believe you? I can't explain everything now. Just listen. You have to lock all the doors and windows. Don't open them for anyone. Don't answer the door. And whatever you do, don't go outside. Why are you calling me? If you're me, then you know I have no reason to trust. Because I made mistakes. The voice cut in, more urgent now. I didn't listen to myself, and that's why I'm dead. You're my last chance. I'm running out of time. Please. The line went dead, leaving me with a deafening silence. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt the weight of the warning bearing down on me. I glanced around my apartment, trying to dismiss the growing sense of dread. It was absurd to think that a call from my future self could be real. Still, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that something was very wrong. I moved quickly to lock all the doors and windows, the storm outside providing a chilling backdrop to my frantic movements. I even checked under the beds and inside closets, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. As I finished securing the apartment, I heard a knock at the door. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at the clock. It was almost exactly the time my future self had warned me about. My hand trembled as I approached the door, peeking through the peephole. Through the distorted lens, I saw a figure standing in the hallway, barely illuminated by the flickering light bulb. My stomach churned with anxiety, and I stepped back from the door, my pulse racing. The figure moved away, and the knock ceased. I stood frozen, straining to hear any sounds from the hallway. Minutes passed, each one stretching into an eternity. The storm outside grew fiercer, with rain pelting the windows and wind howling through the cracks. My anxiety mounted with each gust of wind. The only sound I could hear was the relentless thrum of the rain. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the apartment into darkness. I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. My mind raced with thoughts of the killer, the future warning, and the impending danger. Another knock at the door. This one was louder, more insistent. My breathing grew shallow, my hands shaking as I moved closer to the door. I knew I had to stay hidden, to follow the instructions from the voice on the phone. Then, I heard a scraping sound coming from the window in the living room. The window was locked. I remembered checking it, but the noise grew louder, more frantic. Panic surged through me. Someone, or something, was trying to get in. I reached for the phone to call the police, but the screen was blank. The storm must have knocked out the power, leaving me with no way to call for help. I was alone, isolated, and terrified. The scraping grew louder, more aggressive. My mind raced as I tried to think of what to do next. I stumbled to the living room, clutching a heavy lamp as a makeshift weapon. The window was shuddering under the pressure, and I could see shadows moving outside. Suddenly, the knocking at the door stopped. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my ears. I crept back toward the door, glancing nervously through the peephole once more. The hallway was empty. The figure was gone. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. As I turned away from the door, I heard a voice coming from behind me. A soft, familiar voice. My future self's voice. "You didn't listen to me," it whispered. I spun around, but there was no one there. The shadows danced ominously on the walls, and the room seemed to close in on me. I could feel a presence, something dark and malevolent. The fear was suffocating, making it hard to breathe. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing the room in a stark, harsh light. I saw my reflection in the mirror, but something was terribly wrong. My eyes were dark, hollow voids, as though all light had been sucked from them. I reached up to touch my face, feeling the emptiness where my eyes should have been. A chilling realization hit me. I hadn't just heard the warning from the future. I had become the warning. My future self's words weren't a call to save me. They were a final, desperate attempt to warn me of the fate I was destined to suffer. The apartment door creaked open slowly, and I knew the killer had come for me after all. I stumbled back, blinded and terrified, as I heard the slow, deliberate footsteps approaching. The voice on the phone had been a premonition, not a salvation. As the footsteps drew nearer, my world went dark once again. The storm outside raged on, a fitting backdrop to the final, chilling moments of my life. The killer's presence loomed over me, and I realized too late that there was no escaping the dark fate I had been warned about. In those final moments, I understood the true horror of the call from tomorrow. The future wasn't just a warning. It was a relentless, inevitable descent into darkness. And now, as I faced the end, I knew there was no escape from the chilling prophecy that had sealed my fate. Get ready for the next story that will send chills down your spine. I always thought my life was perfect. My career was thriving, and I was surrounded by people who admired me. But I never realized how dangerous envy could be until it was too late. My roommate, Anna, was someone I considered a friend, though I now know her jealousy simmered beneath the surface, hidden beneath her smiles. Anna and I lived together for years, sharing laughter and secrets, or so I thought. It turns out that jealousy had taken root in her heart, and her longing for the attention and success that seemed to come effortlessly to me drove her to a dark place. One morning, I woke up with an unsettling feeling. I reached for my phone to check the time, but I couldn't see anything. Panic surged through me as I stumbled out of bed, blindly searching for something familiar. My fingers brushed against the mirror on my dresser, and a cold dread crept over me. I couldn't see my reflection. "Anna!" I screamed, my voice echoing through the apartment. "Anna, I can't see." Anna rushed into the room, her voice dripping with concern that now seemed so fake. "What happened, Sarah?" "I don't know," I cried, my voice breaking. "I just woke up like this." Anna's voice wavered as she comforted me, but deep down, something felt off. Days turned into weeks and my life unraveled around me. My successful career slipped away. My friends disappeared, and I was left alone in a world of darkness. But Anna was always there, watching me, almost as if she thrived on my despair. Despite everything, a flicker of determination burned within me. I sensed that my blindness wasn't natural. I couldn't explain it, but I knew Anna had a hand in my suffering. I was determined to uncover the truth. Late one night, while Anna was out, I began to explore our apartment. My hands felt along the walls, searching for anything unusual. I stumbled into Anna's room, and a strange energy pulsed within. As I entered, my fingers brushed against a small wooden box on her desk. Inside, I found an old, tattered book of spells. Realization washed over me as I traced the outlines of the symbols and words on the page. Anna's jealousy had driven her to the unthinkable, but I had to act quickly to reverse the spell. I flipped through the pages, searching for a counterspell. My fingers finally landed on the right incantation, and I began to recite the words, my voice filled with hope and desperation. As I spoke, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candle flames. When Anna returned, I was standing there, my face set with newfound determination. "Anna, I know what you did," I said, my voice steady. Anna's eyes widened with fear. "You can't prove anything," she hissed, but I could hear the fear in her voice. I held up the book. "I don't need to. I'm undoing it." As I completed the incantation, a blinding light filled the room. Anna screamed as the spell's power surged back toward her, and slowly my vision returned. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the light, and saw Anna cowering on the floor. But something was wrong. Instead of the spell being undone, I felt a searing pain in my eyes. The room twisted and distorted, and I realized with horror that I could see, but not as I used to. My vision was warped, showing me flashes of disturbing images, shadows creeping along walls, faces twisted with malice, and Anna's reflection in the mirror, her eyes filled with madness. Anna's laughter echoed through the room, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "You thought you could break the spell?" she sneered. "I warned you. There's no going back." The reality hit me like a punch to the gut. Anna's spell had not only blinded me, but bound my soul to something dark and malevolent. The images I saw weren't hallucinations. They were glimpses of a twisted reality that Anna had drawn me into. My heart pounded as I stumbled backward, the world around me becoming a cacophony of terrifying visions. Anna's laughter faded, leaving me in a silent, oppressive darkness that felt all too real. Trapped in a nightmare of my own making, I realized that my struggle was far from over. The shadows danced, and I knew they were waiting for me to falter, to give in. In the end, Anna's jealousy had claimed us both, binding us to a fate more disturbing than I could ever have imagined. It's time for the third story of the night. Oliver Barker had never been a fan of the circus. To him, it was a frivolous distraction, a garish display of nonsense. One evening, he begrudgingly attended a local circus with his friends, who had insisted on going. As the show progressed, Oliver's disdain only grew, particularly during the clown's performance. The clown, Harlequin, was a vibrant character with a painted face and exaggerated gestures. He performed with enthusiasm, hoping to bring joy to the audience. However, his efforts were met with Oliver's scorn. During one of Harlequin's acts, Oliver loudly jeered, "Is this the best you can do? Even a child could do better." The crowd fell silent, and Harlequin's smile faltered. Despite the insult, he continued his act, but the hurt was evident in his eyes. Oliver's words cut deeper than he realized. Later that night, Harlequin sat alone in his dimly lit trailer, the painted smile on his face smeared and forlorn. The life of a clown was not as joyous as it appeared. Behind the mask lay years of hardship and loneliness. Oliver's harsh words had struck a chord, amplifying Harlequin's despair. As the hours passed, the weight of his sorrow became unbearable. Harlequin penned a brief, heartfelt note, apologizing to his fellow performers and expressing his pain. With a heavy heart, he took his own life. The colorful world he had created for others now dark and empty. The circus awoke to tragedy the next morning. The performers mourned the loss of their friend, while the town buzzed with rumors and whispers. News of Harlequin's death soon reached Oliver, but he shrugged it off, dismissing it as another unfortunate event in a world full of them. That night, Oliver returned home, unaware that his life was about to change forever. As he lay in bed, a strange feeling crept over him, a sense of being watched. He dismissed it as paranoia and drifted off to sleep, but his dreams were far from peaceful. In his dream, Oliver found himself back at the circus. The vibrant colors and joyful laughter had been replaced by a cold, eerie silence. Harlequin appeared before him, his painted face now twisted in sorrow and anger. "You did this to me," the clown whispered, his voice echoing with haunting clarity. Oliver woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. He tried to shake off the dream, but the feeling of unease lingered. Over the next few days, the hauntings became more frequent. Objects in his home moved on their own. Shadows loomed in corners, and Harlequin's spectral form would appear at the edge of his vision, always watching. Desperate for answers, Oliver sought help from a local psychic, Madame Zara. She listened to his story with grave concern and performed a séance to communicate with Harlequin's spirit. The room grew cold as Madame Zara chanted, and Harlequin's ghostly form materialized. "Why do you haunt me?" Oliver demanded, his voice trembling. "You took away my last bit of hope," Harlequin's spirit replied. "Your words pushed me over the edge, and now I am bound to you by the weight of my sorrow." Oliver, racked with guilt, pleaded for forgiveness. He vowed to make amends, to honor Harlequin's memory, and bring joy back into the world as a way to atone for his cruelty. Madame Zara advised Oliver to perform an act of kindness in Harlequin's name, to show that he truly understood the pain he had caused. Oliver dedicated himself to organizing charity events for underprivileged children, bringing smiles to those who needed it most. He funded a new scholarship for aspiring performers, ensuring that Harlequin's legacy lived on through the joy of others. As Oliver's acts of kindness grew, the hauntings began to lessen. Harlequin's spirit, witnessing the change in Oliver, slowly found peace. On the anniversary of Harlequin's death, Oliver held a special memorial at the circus. celebrating the life and laughter that Harlequin had brought to so many. That night, as Oliver lay in bed, he felt a gentle presence. Harlequin's spirit appeared one last time, his painted face now serene. "Thank you," the ghost whispered. "I can rest now." With that, Harlequin's spirit faded into the ether, leaving Oliver with a profound sense of relief and a newfound purpose. The guilt that had once consumed him transformed into a driving force for good, ensuring that no one else would suffer the same fate. The circus continued to thrive, and Oliver became a beloved figure in the community, remembered not for his harsh words, but for the redemption he sought and the joy he brought to others. The haunting of Harlequin became a tale of forgiveness and change, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always a chance for redemption. Now, let's dive into the fourth creepy story. Are you ready to be scared? Clara Evans was driving home late one night after a long day at work. The rain poured heavily, and visibility on the winding country roads was poor. Suddenly, her car sputtered and came to a halt. She tried restarting the engine, but it was no use. Stranded in the middle of nowhere, Clara pulled out her phone only to find it had no signal. Desperation began to creep in when, out of the mist and rain, a car approached. The driver, a handsome man with piercing eyes and an unsettlingly charming smile, rolled down the window. "Need a lift?" he asked. Clara hesitated, but felt she had no other choice. "Yes, thank you. My car broke down," she replied. The man introduced himself as Dominic and assured her it was no trouble at all. Grateful for the help, Clara climbed into the car, unaware of the ominous aura that surrounded her benefactor. As they drove, Dominic engaged Clara in pleasant conversation. Despite his outward charm, Clara couldn't shake the eerie feeling that something was off. The landscape outside the car windows began to change subtly, becoming more twisted and otherworldly. The trees seemed to bend unnaturally, and the darkness felt thicker, almost alive. "What's going on? Where are we?" Clara asked, her voice tinged with alarm. Dominic's smile widened, revealing a hint of malice. "We're almost there," he said cryptically. Suddenly, the car stopped in front of an enormous gate, its iron bars twisted into grotesque shapes. The air was thick with a supernatural presence. Dominic's form began to shift, his human guise melting away to reveal his true demonic nature. His eyes glowed a fiery red, and his skin took on a sinister hue. Clara gasped in horror and tried to open the door, but it was locked. "Let me out," she screamed. Dominic leaned closer, his voice now a low, menacing growl. "You're mine now, Clara. Welcome to the land of demons." The gates creaked open, and Dominic drove into the demonic realm. The landscape was a twisted parody of the human world, with rivers of molten lava, skies filled with storm clouds and eerie, otherworldly creatures lurking in the shadows. Dominic stopped the car in front of a grand, dark palace. "This is my home," he said, his tone both possessive and admiring. "And now it's yours too." Clara, trembling with fear, was led into the palace. The interior was both magnificent and terrifying, with ornate Gothic architecture and walls adorned with macabre artwork. Dominic's demonic minions watched her with hungry eyes, their presence sending chills down her spine. Days turned into weeks as Clara remained trapped in the land of demons. Dominic's attraction to her was intense, but she never reciprocated. She constantly sought a way to escape, determined not to become a permanent resident of this hellish place. Clara discovered an ancient book in the palace library, filled with spells and rituals. She learned of a ritual that could open a portal back to the human world, but it required the essence of the demon who brought her here. One night, while Dominic was preoccupied with his demonic duties, Clara gathered the necessary ingredients and performed the ritual. The portal began to form, a shimmering gateway to her freedom. Dominic, sensing the disruption, stormed into the room. "What are you doing?" he roared, his demonic form towering over her. Clara stood her ground, her fear replaced by steely determination. "I'm going home," she said defiantly. Dominic lunged at her, but Clara managed to use the last of the ritual's power to trap him momentarily. With a final glance at her captor, she stepped through the portal and into the familiar darkness of the human night. Clara found herself back on the country road where her car had broken down. The rain had stopped, and the sky was beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. She breathed a sigh of relief, her ordeal in the land of demons finally over. Determined never to speak of her harrowing experience, Clara returned to her life with a newfound appreciation for its simple pleasures. She couldn't forget Dominic's face, his sinister charm, or the eerie realm she had escaped. But she was free, and that was all that mattered. The land of demons remained hidden, its gates closed to the human world. Dominic, enraged and humiliated, vowed to find Clara and bring her back. But for now, she was safe, back in a world where demons were just stories, and nightmares ended when you woke up. Or so she hoped. We've made it to the last story of the night. This final tale is the scariest one yet, guaranteed to give you chills. Thomas Grant sat in his small, cluttered study, staring at the blank page before him. The once feared serial killer, known to the media as the Scribbler for his penchant for leaving cryptic notes at his crime scenes, had been dormant for 3 years. His hands, once steady and precise, now trembled slightly as he held the pen. The years had not been kind to Thomas. His hair had turned gray, and deep lines etched his face. The thrill of the hunt, the rush of the kill, had faded into a distant memory. He had tried to fill the void with mundane hobbies, gardening, reading, even knitting, but nothing compared to the satisfaction of his former life. One evening, while browsing the internet, Thomas stumbled upon an article titled, "Horror Story Ideas Unleash Your Inner Fear." Intrigued, he clicked on it, hoping for a spark of inspiration to break through his lethargy. The article detailed various horror tropes and story prompts, each more chilling than the last. Thomas felt a familiar tingle as he read through the list. A haunted house that drives its inhabitants to madness. A killer who stalks his victims through their dreams. A man who suffers from writer's block until he rediscovers his dark muse. The last prompt struck a chord. Thomas's eyes lit up with a twisted sense of purpose. He realized that his writer's block was not a creative drought, but a symptom of his suppressed urges. The Scribbler was not dead, merely dormant, waiting for the right moment to reawaken. With renewed vigor, Thomas began to plan his next masterpiece. He meticulously selected his tools, sharpened his knives, and prepared his notes. His next victim had to be someone special, someone who would reignite the terror that had once gripped the city. Thomas found his target in the form of a young journalist named Emily Parker. Emily had recently moved to town and was known for her investigative articles on cold cases. Her curiosity and determination made her the perfect muse for Thomas's dark rebirth. He followed her movements, learning her routines and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The thrill of the hunt returned, filling him with a sense of purpose and excitement he hadn't felt in years. One rainy night, Thomas made his move. Emily was working late at the office, the perfect setting for his grand re-entry into the world of fear. As she typed away, oblivious to the danger lurking nearby, Thomas slipped into the building. The power went out, plunging the office into darkness. Emily's heart raced as she fumbled for her phone. The flickering light revealed Thomas's shadowy figure, standing at the edge of the room. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. Thomas stepped forward, his face illuminated by the phone's light. "The scribbler," he replied, his voice a sinister whisper. Emily's eyes widened in recognition and fear. She had written about him, never imagining she would come face to face with the monster himself. Thomas moved quickly, his years of experience guiding his actions. Within moments, Emily lay bound and gagged, tears streaming down her face. Thomas meticulously crafted his note, the hallmark of his twisted signature. He described in detail how he had chosen Emily, how her curiosity had drawn him back from the brink. The words flowed effortlessly, each stroke of the pen reigniting the dark fire within him. "To the world," the note began, "the scribbler has returned. Let this be a warning. Curiosity kills. Stay away from the shadows, for they are where I dwell." He placed the note on Emily's desk and stood back, admiring his work. The fear in her eyes, the helplessness, the perfect scene he had created. It was all too beautiful. The city awoke to the news of Emily Parker's disappearance and the chilling note left behind. Panic spread like wildfire, and the police were once again on high alert. Thomas watched from the shadows, savoring the chaos he had unleashed. But this time, Thomas felt a new sense of satisfaction. He had not only regained his lost inspiration, but had also found a worthy opponent in Emily. He knew she would not go down without a fight, and that thought excited him even more. As he planned his next move, Thomas realized that his writer's block was gone for good. The scribbler was back, and this time he intended to make his mark permanent. The city braced itself for the terror that lay ahead, unaware that the real horror was only just beginning.